You think you tamed the wolf. You think some ancient hunter walked up to a snarling predator, stared it down, and slowly, patiently turned it into man's best friend. That story feels right. It feels earned. It's also almost completely wrong. And once you understand what actually happened, you'll never look at your dog, your cat, or honestly yourself the same way again. Stick around, because by the end of this one, the whole idea of who was really in control is going to fall apart. And if stories like this are your thing, this channel exists entirely for moments like it, so consider sticking around for more. Here's the uncomfortable starting point. For most of human history, we assumed domestication worked like this. Humans decided an animal was useful. Humans caught it, humans bred it generation after generation, selecting for the traits they wanted until eventually the wild thing became the tame thing. Active verb, human subject. We did it to them. Except that's not how wolves became dogs, not even close. Picture a group of early humans tens of thousands of years ago, camped near a fire. They're eating, and like every group of humans that has ever eaten anything, they're leaving scraps. Bones, fat, bits nobody wants. And out in the tree line, wolves are watching. Hungry, opportunistic, always scanning for an easier meal than the one they have to chase down themselves. Now, most of those wolves are exactly what you'd expect. Skittish, aggressive if cornered. The second a human moves too fast or gets too close, they're gone. But every population has outliers. And somewhere in that population of wolves, there were individuals with a slightly different wiring. Lower stress response, less flight instinct, the kind of wolf that could sit 30 meters from a human campfire and just wait instead of bolting. Those wolves ate. The skittish ones didn't. And that's it. That's the whole mechanism. Nobody planned it, nobody trained anything. Natural selection just quietly rewarded calmness around humans, meal after meal, generation after generation. The calm wolves got more food, more energy, more surviving pups. The nervous wolves burned calories running from something that was never actually a threat and slowly lost the genetic race. Humans weren't breeders in this story. Humans were furniture. A stationary food source that some wolves gambled on getting closer to and won. This is what scientists actually call self-domestication, and the fox experiment is where it gets almost eerie. In the 1950s, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev started breeding silver foxes on a fur farm, selecting only for one trait, not size, not color, not usefulness, just tameness, which foxes stayed calm around a human hand. Within a few generations, something happened that nobody was trying to cause. The foxes didn't just get friendlier, their ears started flopping, their tails began to curl, patches of white fur appeared on otherwise dark coats. Their skulls changed shape. Their breeding cycles shifted. Belyaev had selected for one behavior, and the animal's entire body rearranged itself as a side effect. It turns out the genes that control fear and stress response are tangled up with the genes that control physical development. Turn down the fear, and you accidentally turn a whole cascade of other traits along with it. This is almost certainly what happened to wolves, completely on their own, with nobody running an experiment at all. The floppy ears, the curled tails, the patchy coats you see in dogs today, that's not something we designed. That's the fingerprint of an animal quietly selecting itself for calmness around us, one skittish individual at a time getting filtered out of the gene pool. And wolves aren't even the clearest example. Cats might be the most honest case of all, because with cats, humans barely show up in the story. When humans in the ancient Near East started storing surplus grain, they created something that had never existed before, a dense, reliable concentration of rodents, and rodents attract predators. Wildcats moved in on their own, drawn by an easy hunting ground, not by any human invitation. The bolder, more people-tolerant cats stuck around the grain stores. The truly wild ones kept their distance and missed out on the buffet. Humans didn't select cats for anything. We just built the conditions accidentally, and cats did the rest. We didn't tame the cat. The cat noticed an opportunity and decided we were worth tolerating. So here's the pattern across almost every domesticated animal. It isn't a human deciding to shape a species, it's a species deciding, without deciding, to shape itself around us. We were never the architects, we were the environment. Which raises an obvious question. If this is really how it works, why isn't every animal on the planet domesticated by now? Why don't we have pet zebras and tame antelope wandering around backyards? Because self-domestication needs a very specific starting condition. It needs individual variation in fear response, and it needs that calmer version to actually survive better near humans than the anxious version does. Zebras, as it turns out, are almost uniformly high-strung. There's no meaningful subpopulation of chilled-out zebras for selection to work on, because in their environment, being constantly on edge is what keeps you alive against lions. Deer scatter at the faintest shift in wind. Most large herbivores never had the genetic raw material for calmness to take hold. Domestication was never a matter of trying hard enough. It was a matter of whether a species happened to carry the right variation to begin with, and whether proximity to us paid off more than staying wild did. Horses complicate the picture in an interesting way, because horses are one of the few large animals where humans probably did play a more active role, and even then, the story isn't as clean as textbooks make it sound. Early herders on the Eurasian steppe likely started by managing wild herds for meat, long before anyone thought about riding one. Only later did people begin selecting specific animals for temperament and stamina, breeding calmer, more cooperative individuals on purpose. Horses are closer to a genuine case of human-directed breeding. But even here, the underlying raw material, herd animals with a wide range of individual temperaments, some skittish, some naturally more tolerant of proximity, had to already exist before humans could push in that direction at all. We didn't create the calm horse from nothing. We found the calmest end of an existing spectrum and leaned on it. The same basic ingredient shows up again. Variation has to exist first. Humans, at best, accelerate a process that biology already made possible. So the wolves that became dogs weren't tamed. They gambled on us and won. The cats that moved into our grain stores weren't caught. They saw an opportunity and took it. In story after story, the animal is the one making the move, and we're just the stable, food-rich backdrop they're adapting to. And here's where it gets genuinely strange, because you might be looking at all of this from the outside like it's a story about other species. It isn't. Anthropologists studying human evolution have noticed something odd about us compared to our ancient relatives. Modern human skulls are smoother, our faces are less rugged, our brow ridges are smaller, and our bodies produce less circulating stress hormone under threat than earlier hominins likely did. The pattern is oddly familiar: softer features, calmer temperament, physical changes clustering around a shift in behavior. It's the same signature you see in domesticated foxes and dogs. Some researchers now argue that Homo sapiens underwent something very close to self-domestication as a species, that individuals who were less aggressive, more cooperative, and easier to live alongside in large groups simply out-survived and out-reproduced the volatile ones, generation after generation, until it reshaped our faces, our hormones, and our temperament, the same way it reshaped a wolf into a dog, which means the calm dog sleeping at your feet and the calm human sitting on the couch next to it may have arrived at that calmness through nearly the same evolutionary trick. Neither one was tamed by anyone. Both were filtered quietly, generation after generation, by whichever version of themselves could tolerate being close to others without falling apart. Think about what that implies. The short-tempered, highly reactive members of our ancestral groups likely struggled more in large, dense, cooperative settlements. They clashed, they got excluded, they had a harder time forming the alliances that kept a person fed and protected. The easier going ones fit in, cooperated, formed larger networks, and had more support raising children who survived. Multiply that small advantage across hundreds of generations, and you get an entire species gradually softened by its own social requirements without a single individual ever choosing it. You didn't domesticate your dog, and in a very real sense, nobody domesticated you either. You're both just the calm ones who survived. If this shifted how you think about who's really in control in that relationship, that's exactly the kind of rewiring this channel's built around. So make sure you're subscribed for what comes next. And before you go, I want to know something. If you had to bet on it, do you think humans are still self-domesticating right now? Getting calmer and easier to live with generation by generation? Or do you think that process stopped a long time ago? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. See you in the next video.